Yep, I'm back up again and I'm live. That's right. Frostpunk Radio is live for tonight, and I'm going into the Frostpunk Radio chat. So if you're on, let's have a small conversation in the Frostpunk Radio. The local Lord Librarian is online. So why don't you hop on in the Frostpunk Radio so we can have a conversation. Nobody yet? Who will show up tonight? If you're online, pop onto the Discord page and let's have a chat in the Frostpunk Radio link up. Discussions about lore and anything else you want to talk about, you can catch me there right now. Who will jump in on the Frostpunk Radio chat tonight? Let's see who is on. Not a lot of people. Let me message this guy. Waiting to see if anybody will respond. Alright, in the meantime, I'm just gonna lay down some things about automatons. There have been questions about what automatons are and how they work. And the truth is, the difference or analytical engine, it doesn't necessarily need punch cards. That's the truth. All it needs is, to an extent, just some number crunching formulas. I was talking about it being almost like a coded machine, like the same things that you use to lock what do you call them? Radios? Not radios. Oh my God, I'm horrible. Looks like we're gonna have our first call of the night. Let's see if we can get people in on the chat. Seems like somebody else just hopped on. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. We're live right now. What you want to talk about?
No idea. You're the host.
Yeah, I know. But any kind of discussion. I was listening to you. Not listening. I read a comment from you about automatons, right? You were.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you want to know how they work, right?
Yeah, you said it wasn't punch cards, but you said it was something like well, kind of like a key, like how bank locks work and how well, I get the machinery, yeah.
Yeah, it's something like that, like clockwork. I was looking.
Like clockwork, basically.
Yeah. It's kind of strange because when you look at it, there could be a pilot, but the thing is, I guess they operate without pilots. That's interesting to me, that you can actually operate the machine yourself, but they're like, you know what? This shit's too cold to have somebody actually operating it. Let's just make it operate on its own. Because I'm sure you finished the arcs, right? You played the Automaton Scout.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that was one thing that I found interesting. The fact that you could actually have scouts that could be automatons, but you need a person to actually operate it. So my question is, where do they get the resources to keep these automatons running within the Frostland? You see where I'm going?
Yeah, that's a good call. But then again, they also have the resources to scout all the way down for 12, over a day, 2-3 days as people. But you would assume that they would have sleds, maybe some provisions on them. So I suppose an automaton would probably, like an automaton scout, what would you need? Like, what kind of resources would you need to take an automaton scout?
Well,
you would probably need,
Go on.
Yeah, like the automaton and, what was it, like, not even people. I think automatons and just resources.
Yeah, coal and I think some wood and some steel and one steam core. So.
Oh, that ought to make sense then.
Yeah, it does. But then
it probably just, it refills itself.
It refills itself, but then it means it has to go somewhere way off in the Frostland somewhere and collect the resources, or there's a certain amount of resources it needs to operate. But then it's out there for so long.
When it's sent off. Exactly. It's when it's sent off with all that coal.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to send some of those resources away, and then you're like, okay, so what happens next? Can this thing break down in the Frostland? But it keeps going. Have you ever noticed that anyone can be a scout? You notice that?
Honestly, I think the whole automaton sort of premise is flawed. But if we were, I don't know, we can always obviously validate this somehow.
Yeah. Go on, man. I'm listening.
Well, yeah, it's sent off with coal. Yeah, it's sent off with coal, and it definitely has like what? I think it's sent off with like some like 100 or something, which is I guess decent.
Yeah.
And automaton's big. I guess what we should be saying is that well, yeah, I guess because it is sent off with coal, I guess that's like the only reason it can ever really last.
Yeah, because it has the
coal
inside of it, yeah. But
it's sent off with a bunch of coal.
Yeah, so then that means that if the automatons can be sent off with a bunch of coal to go run around in the Frostland, then maybe we could probably get other vehicles to do the same. That's one of the things I wanted 11 Studios to look into, if it was possible to actually get other vehicles into the game. They did it in Winterhome. You saw that vehicle, right? That thing that transports people to I don't know what it's called.
Yeah. The big dreadnought. That train thing. Yeah.
I think that
the train to the dreadnought. Yeah.
Probably a steam lorry of some sort. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, something of the sort, like a smaller version of it. Like, I remember one of the upgrades for the scouts, the latest one to make it go even faster, like the fastest. It says it upgrades it with powered sleds.
Powered sleds. So maybe
boosted sleds.
Boosted sleds. So this could probably be some form of advanced boosted sleds, because it kind of has the body of a small dreadnought and the front part of a dog sled.
Pretty much. It just pumps off.
It just pumps off. And I'm wondering,
on a wooden plank, I guess.
How the hell does this thing turn? Because it has to make probably a 360-degree turn from the direction it's going. That's one of the crazy
I guess you'd have to turn it off and stop and turn around.
Yeah. And then the other thing that's kind of strange is that there are people that are walking beside it. So does this thing go ahead of them, leave them behind, and they catch up to it later?
I suppose they're all tied up together. I think they all point in one direction, and all that time in between is like you know how in the beginning of the first scenario, you can go from one point, like there's a massive crevasse for New London. The first scenario, if you remember, from the top, and then there's like a big crevasse that just goes straight down, and then obviously down further and to the right, that would be Winterhome. You remember that?
Yeah.
So like basically, if you can tell one scout to cross that crevasse, and it wouldn't have a problem, I'm assuming the game would probably just say, yeah, they probably can. All that time that they took is them going around and doing whatever. It's not actually them going in a straight line.
Yeah, so they basically go through it, but maybe they build a bridge or something over it. But then
It just seems kind of big.
Yeah, it is. It's a large crevice. I think something has fallen in there before and died. But the bridge, though,
exactly.
Have you noticed that there is a bridge? There's a bridge and it's maintained by an automaton, but then the automaton gets left there and it's still working. It's just that it becomes dormant. You notice that?
Exactly.
So then I
remember that one, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, if that's the case, then they must have either given it coal or something to get it up and running and send it back to the city. So then scouts are more than just unskilled labor. They must have some form of engineering background or something, because I'm thinking only engineers are supposed to be able to repair automatons. There's a loophole.
Yeah.
That's strange. That's one thing. The next thing is the fact. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, that the automaton should have died a long time ago, or at least had a finite lifespan on that bridge.
Yeah, but I'm guessing that there must be some form of resource cache nearby or something like that, because every time you play this game, there's always some form of resource that is scattered around the Frostlands somewhere. So that to me is a bit weird. The fact that it can run out there, but you don't know where the resources are coming from to maintain it, and there's no city really. So that's another...
Exactly.
Yeah, another plot hole going on right there. And then there's the fact Go on.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that maybe the points of interest and the resources, there might be some form of massive coal pile or something like that in the area, or these automatons might have some form of upgrade, because they can't operate out there by themselves.
Either that, or the automaton was too recently left dormant. I guess.
I'm thinking that Winterhome and New London were operating at the same time. That's my thought at the moment.
They definitely had an overlap, but by the time the storm started coming in through New London, I think Winterhome started falling apart.
Probably a little bit earlier.
That was in the beginning of. I think the beginning of the last scenario was during around, I'd say, the middle of the first one, which is by the time the refugees found Winterhome through that little scout. Yeah. That one of those engineers at that surveying station that has a 50% chance of discovering New London. And like the alternate reality that they got off on the dreadnought.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the last scenario started around halfway of the first.
Halfway of it, like right before you actually upgrade your city to a level that it can probably survive the decreasing temperatures. So during the time that you've discovered all of the areas, that includes the coal mine that belongs to Winterhome and the abandoned research station around that area. And
like the thing is, like, with when the refugees start coming in, those are refugees from Winterhome, right?
Well, no, those aren't really refugees from Winterhome. Those refugees...
Oh, I see.
Yeah, those refugees came from somewhere that we don't know. They just showed up. But from what the lore has
been... But they came from that direction.
No, they didn't come from south. Because I think...
Yeah,
they came from the east. The east. They came from the east. So I'm thinking that maybe the city that was constructed after Winterhome might have failed, or whatever they planned to do with that dreadnought. I'm not sure. And they might have been coming back. Or this might be a totally different group of people that were running from the storm. You see where I'm going?
Oh yeah, because they did mention the storm, the refugees.
Yeah. So if they're running from the storm, then that means that there could have been more people out in the Frostland somewhere that we don't know about. That's kind of crazy. The fact that the lore is kind of mismatched when you look at certain things and you're trying to discover certain things within the Frostland. It don't add up sometimes. And you're like, where is this thing going? What is actually going on at the moment? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. When they were coming in from the east, and the weather station for Winterhome never even found the storm.
Yeah, that's
so those refugees would never have come from Winterhome because they wouldn't have ever discovered it in the first place, unless they obviously discovered it on the way there. But that's just, I guess, I can just table that.
Yeah. So we don't know where they're coming from, but what we do know as a fact is that they were running from the storm. So the next crazy thing that kind of catches me is the fact that Winterhome had 3 dreadnoughts. You notice that? They had 3.
Oh yeah, it did have 3. There was one at the top north of it, the one left over that we took back.
Yeah.
And what was the third one?
The third one, it exploded. Some faulty design caused it to explode.
Wasn't that the one that was up north?
Yeah, it was up north, somewhere in the hills. Up that
there was
side.
2 of them then.
No, there was 3. Like, I was saying there was 2, but then somebody else on the Discord page was like, nah man, there's 3 of them. So like something happened with number 3 and it exploded and they buried the bodies and then they headed to Winterhome after. And another one, because of some faulty design, it kind of stopped working and they had to leave it behind, and some people died in that situation as well.
Okay, I don't remember the third one, the one that exploded.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But for some reason, I feel like I do remember that.
That's the thing. I didn't.
When I finished.
Yeah, go on.
When I finished Winterhome, well, I didn't really play with the same sort of vigor I played the first 3. I'll be honest, but so I don't really remember as much because I had a bunch of other shit to do. College got really fucking really hyped up all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really remember the third exploding dreadnought. I don't remember them describing it.
Yeah, there was a third one. I think we got a steam core from it as well. There was something.
Yeah.
There was something else that I also noticed about the third or the dreadnoughts within the Winterhome scenario is that there were also some trailer parts that these things would carry behind them. So I'm now thinking that the dreadnoughts to an extent were almost like they transported humans and cargo and whatever else that they might need for the site itself. So it's almost like a super train or even a ship on wheels.
It's almost like a. Sorry, what did you say? I didn't catch the last word.
I'm saying it's a super train or like almost like a giant ship.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I'm saying if it's so huge, there must be some way that it can also fall into the ice itself. And we have seen this actually happen before with the what was it? I think either it was the refugees or the Arks, or it might have been New London, where the generator got stuck in the ice and they had to abandon it last minute.
Oh yeah. I do recall that.
Yeah, so that kind of gives me another perspective of thinking that maybe it could be possible that, whenever they had no interest in actually going to New London, and it was by chance because their dreadnought failed that they headed in the direction of New London and stumbled upon the site. So then the site technically was meant for them, but they lost track because of the fighting. Because you came across the convoy in the New London scenario, right?
The convoy was I mean, I obviously did everything in New London, but what was the convoy?
It was a large group of I think it was some form of machinery or a group of people that were heading in a particular direction. They were heading for New London, not New London, Winterholm. But then something. But then something happened to Winterholm. They lost sight of the beacon, and then they ran out of fuel, so they got trapped. So I'm guessing that.
Yeah, and then we fetched them.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that might have been the relief team that the captain was trying to get out. Get out to probably help just in case the generator exploded.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That is a possibility, But I just like the fact that.
Wow, I completely forgot about that one.
Yeah, I figured you probably would have. So I was in the suggestion area, and I was looking at something about you talking about exoskeletons. You remember that?
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting idea, because where it might actually come in is that people might be able to work within the Frostland and within the city limits without needing to have the area heated. What's up, man? You good, Luke?
Hey, what's going on?
Good, man.
Nice.
Welcome to the radio. Yeah. So we're talking.
Yeah, the exoskeletons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we moved on to the suggestions.
Yeah. So my friend.
So yeah, like
Go on.
Oh, sorry.
Go on, man. Go on.
So the exoskeletons, I feel like, let's just say if automatons exist, I feel like exoskeletons would just fit the picture really well, and as something that would be an easy next step in something of Frostpunk being so steampunky.
I like that. I like that idea, because if they're exoskeletons, then we might need to fix them and repair them now and then, or we might get some form of advancement to it, so that would allow people to survive in the drastically decreasing temperatures that's occurring. So that's
the thing. I feel like that as a technology to sustain people against the temperature would need to be researched way after the fact, because the practicality of exoskeletons in the first place would be to increase the efficiency of regular things that they need to do. But obviously, like you said, exoskeletons would eventually have that capacity. The only thing is, because the standard scenario is like what, a month, 30 days.
Yeah.
You know how we were talking about in endurance mode? It would just go like through spans of like years, and like babies would be born, and this would be a proper civilization popping out of there.
Yeah.
That's where these exoskeletons would become. I think in that scenario, exoskeletons. No, actually, I think exoskeletons should be researchable within 30 days to have extra heating. You're right, actually. I think that is actually something that would be possible, considering the rest of the stuff you can research. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you think, Luke?
I don't have any opinion really about the lore. I think you guys are doing great. Good job.
Well, I'm saying we were talking about some suggestions for some crazy ass exoskeletons that we think could actually be introduced into the game itself.
I have no opinion on exoskeletons. I'm just more thinking about long term, like should children grow up and become laborers? The speed of the game increase in order to facilitate that? I don't know.
I feel like a city over the span of 9 months, enough time for a baby to pop out, the city would not be the same. It would not be recognizable. One to 2 months. I mean, it takes 1 month for somebody to become a god king of the fucking city.
Yeah. the interesting thing about it is that if we can have children within the city becoming adults, then it creates a whole new set of gameplay, because when women become pregnant, they demand a lot more resources. So that might actually reduce the labor force, and it might also increase the amount of food that is taken in by these individuals. So
there would also be probably a nursing building, or maybe I guess I could just stay in the infirmary, I suppose.
We have the child
but yeah.
So we can use that building, or it can be an upgraded thing with the law in it. So before, women would probably take them back to the bunkhouse or the tents or the house itself, but then we enact the law that children must be in a nursery, and then after they've reached a certain age, they must be reintroduced to the family or something like that. But the child health care facility has to be close to the generator and has to be kept at a comfortable temperature at all times, because if the temperature falls, then there's going to be discontent and people will die. So there is a negative effect to it, to having it within the city. And if it's not in the city and you're playing the endurance mode, then you can also experience a lot of infanticide, if that's what it's called, or a lot of children dying early. What do you think about that?
The amount of issues and the amount of changes that would occur over the span of like a year. I mean, yeah, exactly. You got all of that is great, and the nursing home would ideally be next to the generator. But I guess if you were to, let's just say there was a scenario of where you'd be mayor of, or de facto mayor, whatever the word you want to use, of the city at a time when it's been at least a couple years old, maybe, or maybe even 5. And then it would probably dabble into children's education, how they would grow up, and how they would enter the labor force. I think a good scenario would probably be like something of that application, to put a nursing home next to the generator. Obviously, that would be something where you'd already be mayor, where the city would have lasted at least a year.
Yeah. So if the city lasts for long, if it lasts for that long, then that means that the exosuits would play a vital role in ensuring that certain resources can be collected even when the temperature falls. And there's another thing. Go on.
I think I found a way to sort of. I think one aspect that should be explored if an endurance mode is made was clearly going to be domains of control between these generator cities. Yeah. And if exoskeletons, I guess that's a different topic, but in pursuit of that, that would happen after this, because exoskeletons would produce a capacity for people to travel long distances outside of the city.
Yeah.
To fetch all sorts of resources.
Yeah, I was.
Let's just say to fetch an unbelievable amount of resources from any sort of like area, coal, whatever. So that would mean the city is tremendously sustainable, and because of that, that means it has room to grow. And coming back to the topic about the kid. Well, basically, sorry, you were going on about exoskeletons, right? And to what degree?
I'm saying that if we have the exoskeletons, as you were saying, we could probably set up outposts or settlements on the outskirts of the city, and we could probably use them as excavation teams to expand the city limits, almost like city skylines. just with
exactly
Frostpunk to it. That's what I was thinking. But
man, Frostpunk would just be something different after that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean the fact that you.
But then,
go on.
Yeah, but then again, it would be which it definitely is still possible. It's just it's the avenue as to how human relations would be in that time. I don't think it's completely out of the question that they would still fight each other.
So you're thinking that
they wouldn't fight each other.
They wouldn't fight each other after a while. You're thinking they would work together.
It's strange because the amount of discord that would be inside the city in the first place, trying to build it up. The avenues of laws that Frostpunk offers, it just has to happen. There has to be fights.
Yeah,
there has to be conflict between. So that means, there has to be fights. To have another settlement be friendly is to definitely get it in one way or another.
Well, having friends.
Put it under your domain.
Yeah, I mean, you could have them as friends, or you could try and take them over. So that is another thing that could actually happen, because I'm saying that if you're gonna go for an endurance mode, it just makes sense that you just expand the Frostland into something like a Total War Attila setting. You know what I'm talking about? Those huge
I actually haven't played Total War, but I played all sorts of games that sort of like that. I think I know what you mean though. Like there is a nice system of expansion.
Yeah.
So basically,
you can go out into the Frostland and you could probably find a city somewhere, and then, or you could find a spot and you could probably send an excavation team, and what they could do is they could go there and practically excavate the area and then build another city there. That's what I'm thinking.
The resources to create another generator steam core.
Yeah.
Now, what would be required? That would be built in a factory, or maybe like a larger manufactory.
Well, I'm thinking that if the Tesla City was the main area for, the creation of steam cores within the Frostland, maybe what we could actually do is we could take back over the Tesla City. So we could go to Tesla City and then rebuild it. And then when we rebuild Tesla City, or we dismantle it, like how the scouts would go to certain areas and they would go and dismantle it. I'm thinking that we could dismantle the city itself and then carry the blueprint back to our city and start building steam cores, and probably we might get the generator plants from there. Or like how there's a repair station in Winterhome setting, we could use that. Yo, what's up, Neef? We could use that as a blueprint to build another generator. What you say, man? What do you think? You're live right now, bro.
Yes, I'll just quietly sit in the background and say nothing.
Come on, man. You gotta.
Yeah, when you have something, you can just pop in.
Yeah, what's up?
Figured why not?
I feel like once Tesla City can actually be dismantled, there has to be a brand new tree of technology. One of which is to manufacture generator steam cores.
Yeah. That is.
And
go on.
And I suppose, because with being able to manufacture generator steam cores, you'd be able to make dreadnoughts. You'd be able to make things of larger scale, and because of that, because you'd also be able to make these generator steam cores, you should be able to augment your original generators to be even better than they would be before, even after the last tier of upgrades.
Yeah.
So that's something that should be implicit, but to extend an original technology tree is a bit, I wouldn't say impractical, but it's it's an unconventional avenue.
Yeah, so you're right. The tree has to expand out into something else. And 11-bit Studio has actually done this, because if you look at the Winterhome tech tree, there's another space in it where you go over and you see the research or the repair station showing up. So the repair station could
Oh yeah, it just pops up to the right.
Yeah. So that could be how it works. Like the blueprint, the tech tree could be this unknown anomaly. So depending on how you play the game, certain things can actually expand out into the city in terms of you building new technology. So if you play a certain way, you could create land dreadnoughts, or if you complete a certain mission, you get blueprints for that. If you go to a certain area, or you excavate something within the Frostland, because everything is covered by snow. If anything like that could allow you to gain access to certain technologies that could then be used to advance your city to the next level. So that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on it?
I feel like Tesla would, the amount of technology that, because the generator in the Tesla city was, just electricity just popping out everywhere. I feel like it was, something of a different caliber. Something a lot different than just throwing in coal.
Yeah.
Much more battery oriented. So because of that, because of how unique that angle would have been, that would require a brand new tree rather than. I think Tesla deserves a brand new tree as opposed to being an extension or maybe it could be an extension of every other tree, because there's a heating. There could be a new column in heating, another column in exploration. Oh, that would make a lot more sense, actually. That could work.
Yeah. I mean, it needs an air by itself. What do you think, Neef?
I think it's a good idea, and I personally think what Tesla was trying to do was probably try to make electricity from the steam cores so the city never needed to mine coal.
Yeah.
Which would, of course, then free up manpower to, hunt or do research or tend to the wounded.
Right.
And to live, generally.
Yeah.
The
core of the game is to live.
Yes, that is the core component of the game. But when I was doing research for the origins of the steam core, I actually found out that to an extent there is an electrical component, because if you guys look at it closely, it glows continuously even when it's not being used. So that means that there are three components to it. So from my understanding, there is you guys know about electrolysis, right? You use water or whatever it is to create electricity or something like that. So
yeah.
So I'm
not really, but
something like that. So I'm thinking that the electricity portion of it is what makes it glow, and then the other part is the steam. So it creates electricity and steam at the same time, but it compresses the steam into such small proportions that it releases immense amounts of energy. Because like the wall drill, how powerful that shit has to be to drill through such thick ice, right? That is some crazy ass power. Even though it's being fed by the gen, it still needs something almost like a whistle. I think it operates almost like a fine-tuning device that makes things run even better and more powerful. So like you're saying that the Tesla City would allow us to expand New London in various ways. I'm thinking that if we are allowed to do that, then we could build generator towers, and we can also customize land dreadnoughts. What do you think about customizing land dreadnoughts? Anybody can pop in at this time.
That could be interesting, and that could be an idea for the endurance mode, perhaps. But I'm not sure how they would carry that. I know they're making their own spin on the endurance mode, and have been very quiet about it. But the latest game has shown us using the Dreadnought and Winterhome to, get a lot of steel, a lot of steam cores, change it, use it to evacuate. That was a completely new change on the mechanics, showing that they have a lot of ways they can go about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kept going on about how it's going to be their distinct take.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not as if they're willingly saying that they're not going to take our suggestions, but it could really be in any direction.
Yeah, it can be, and the fact that
the foundation for endurance mode is just way too vague.
Yes, it is. Go on, Neve. I'll take it from
well, if I just had to say more, I just found it interesting how in Winterhome, I just think Winterhome was a really great scenario, actually. How they do this completely different mechanic we've never encountered before, a completely different change in the game. And it just shows us how they are taking our suggestions for the endurance mode, but it could literally be anything is going to be thrown at us as an endurance mode. We don't know what it could be, but we know they have ideas.
Yeah.
Is endurance mode actually going to be a span of, like, years, as opposed to just beyond a month in the standard time frame of the day and night cycle?
I think it could be. It could be. That is a possibility. So you're saying that...
Would the storm come back hitting even harder?
Yeah, I was saying a couple months ago that the storm itself could actually be a reoccurring event, and, you know, it could actually become one of the driving forces that challenges you as it continuously occurs. But the problem with it is that the storm might have to be altered in terms of its intensity. So at one point in time, you might see the storm be very intense, where temperatures drop to minus 150 or 170. That's too extreme though. But then there are other times where it's mild, because it's almost like a winter hurricane. So you're gonna have to have some form of weather mechanic. And if you noticed with Winterhome, their weather mechanics is very different. Did you see that?
Yes, definitely. In the Winterhome scenario, if you decide to get the 20 engineers out of the weather station, which can be very useful in keeping the generator fixed up and buying you time, it disables the weather reports. You have no idea when it's going to get warmer or colder unless you've played that exact same difficulty 50 times.
Yet still, when you're playing New London, they don't need a weather station.
Yeah, I'm wondering why.
I think...
And perhaps it just wasn't an idea in the game at first, and then they got the idea, hey, what about a staffed weather station? And if they want these engineers to help fix up the city and make it better, they can just take them out at a cost of not knowing when the next drop is coming.
Yeah.
Do you think we're in the beta phase of this game?
Well, that's a possibility.
It's hard to think about it at $30.
I mean, yeah, $30.
Actually, yeah, $30 for this game, and they're adding new free content. It's like, yes, please, get more.
And another thing that's kind of strange is that they didn't say if this new scenario is the builder's mode, or if it is, to an extent, just another free expansion. You guys see that too?
Is this game complete without an endurance mode?
No, it's not.
Well, and I did see. I think I did see them post actually about online. I think it was on IGN, and it was like a quote from 11-Bit Studios that Survivor/Builders mode would be featured. They said it was something of the same.
Survivor/Builders mode. Yeah, I remember that. But the thing is, you know, no one has actually said, yo, this is This is the builder's mode. We just got the winter home release or scenario, but no one said anything else to us about whether or not it is the actual scenario that they were, hyping up and promoting. So that kind of gets me a bit confused. Is this what they wanted to give us? Or is this something to hold us in the meantime? But what is your take on it, man? Anybody can jump in.
Damn, it's hard to tell.
It's a tough cookie, right?
Yeah, because 11-bit is well, I mean, I got a thank you out of them. that's pretty much it. I think it's fair to speculate that, in my honest opinion, I think we're still in the early stages of this game being built. For a number of reasons. Aside from the game's only being $30, there's only one scenario at the release of the game, and then one after another. I'm not sure. Did the Ark and the refugee camp release at the same time?
Yeah.
Yes, the Ark and the refugee camp came out when the game was officially released, but those who had early access only could play the main scenario.
Yeah, New London. Okay, so that means okay. It's not really a one at a time thing.
They released all three of them at the same time.
Yeah, getting back on topic. Sorry, I just lost my head here. It's really late. That I think we are actually yet to actually see more substance to the game. Endurance mode should show us a massive peek into what this game can actually branch out into. And the fact that we can actually speculate this far into the game is pretty good, but...
Yeah.
I think it's very fair to consider that Frostpunk might be in an unofficial beta stage because of these new mechanics we're seeing in the new scenarios that are actually pretty clever. I thought it was very clever that you don't just have this weather report all the time just because we know it. You actually have a station in the city that's monitoring it, and you can staff it with engineers, but if you take them out, you don't know what's going on, but now you have engineers to do research, repair the generator, man your hospitals or infirmaries.
There you go.
The swapping of these circumstances, I thought that it is still clever. It actually does change the mechanic pretty well, but I think they should have kept that. I think they should have kept what I liked about playing the game first. I think it's because of the way I played the game first and the amount of hype I had when I saw all the trailers. I was like, holy fuck. Then I saw my girlfriend, my ex played it, and I was like, whoa, this game is crazy, and it's just as good as the hype came out as to be.
I know.
When I started playing the game, and you could see the temperature. You could see the temperature drop, and you could plan for it.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Because you could plan for it. Then you would know how and what you would want to research, how you would want to research it. I recall in Winterhome, the fluctuations weren't as well, at least in medium, they weren't as intense.
No, they weren't.
They weren't as not at all. So I guess that mechanic pretty much did fit well there.
Yeah, it didn't, because Winterhome, from my point of view, no matter what setting you're playing it on, is the most difficult scenario that you'll ever face within the Frostpunk universe. Judging from the fact that you're trying to save a lot of people from doom, and then the discontent is so high that they basically set up this scenario to force your hand to see how well you'll be able to survive within the scenario itself. The other thing, as I'm going to touch on what you were saying about the fact that the game could expand out into other areas. Just the fact that they released this new mechanic that you can staff outposts. Oh, did you guys also notice that if you don't let the lords into your city, they set up camps outside of the city?
In the refugee scenario, yeah.
So they do, eh?
Yeah, they do. So that means...
Oh yeah, that was an option. I never really did it though.
Yeah, I let them do it. But if they can set up a camp outside of the city, that also means that the mechanics for us actually setting up miniaturized outposts in other locations is possible. You see that?
Oh, I think it's absolutely possible.
They just haven't implemented.
Given the tech anybody has, because if those engineers can live at the weather station and the surveying area where you could find New London with a 50% chance, they could stay there the whole time. Our scouts would have been... My scout was like sitting there for like 10 days, 10, 15 days.
And he found it. So then that means that the 11-Bit Studios team is actually sneaking in content and testing it out while we're playing the game. And then they're like, oh, we're going to implement this later on or so. Because I'm saying to myself, if there is a land dreadnought in the Frostpunk that can be used and we can repair these things, now we know how much it costs to fix, refit, and then refuel. We can probably use it as a last means of escape or as a transport vehicle to reach other locations, if you get what I'm saying. But how far can these things travel with 5,000 core?
Trade routes between cities.
Yes. That actually just gave me another idea of endurance mode. What if each level of endurance, you have a city that you need to evacuate into a dreadnought that goes to another site where you find more people, you gather more people, and you need to get another dreadnought to have those people evacuate. You start having this fleet of just roaming nomad of dreadnoughts that go from place to place, surviving the Frostlands.
Yeah.
That would be a good scenario.
That would be one of the most difficult scenarios ever.
The scoop.
Because you'd have a progressively growing population of roaming nomads that you'd have to care for, which could get difficult.
Yeah, because you have to carry them all around the place, and you have to find out where is the best place to let these guys live, and then you have to collect resources along the way. So it could actually tie into the running from the storm scenario. That's the cool thing.
Because everybody is still evacuating London and all these other places.
Yeah.
I think because the core of the game is still, well, not core, but the premise of the game is still that these guys are refugees from old London and, all places like across the UK. And if they're just wandering about, and I think it was, where was the station placed? It was somewhere near Iceland?
Something like that. We were saying that the game takes place in Iceland due to the fact that there's a lot of volcanic activity in some of the pictures of the game, like the lore itself. There are images of volcanic eruptions, some of the concept art, but we never got to see it appear in the game. So that's one of the reasons why we were saying that it could have been Iceland. And the fact that the generator...
So help.
Go on.
Because the Americans also went all the way out there as well.
Yeah. That's kind of strange, you know. The Americans went out there and they set up a base of operations. And then it turns out that the base of operations that they set up was with Tesla and his city. But what I find also interesting is the fact that every single city is set up almost like in a crater or semi-crater. The only one that I can say wasn't in a crater was New London. Not New London, Winterhold. You saw that?
It was kind of in an area that was below regular ground elevation, though. But yeah, it wasn't as deep as the crater as we've seen before. It was actually easier to get in and out of it by comparison to the other craters we've seen.
It's kind of like the Ark, where if you looked at the back of it, it just... Well, actually, no, that goes off onto a cliff, right? Yeah. Where in the Ark,
I believe so.
with all the wood that you could like take with the sawmill. I think went to one end. It was either off a cliff or it actually led off into something, but we couldn't see it.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting to me. So I was wondering to myself if the cities to an extent were designed that way. So some of them would have almost like a connection to an extent where, you know, you build out the area and you're like, okay, so we want this area to look almost like a V shape so that maybe a air vehicle can come in and drop off supplies, and then we want this one to be a crater to prevent the harsh elements from above actually really affecting the inhabitants within the city itself. So maybe there are some form of design elements in terms of the creation of the craters, but maybe the generator existed there long before the ice actually took over majority of the frostland. But then it's almost like a question of, did the chicken come before the egg or the egg?
Oh yeah, that's true. Because otherwise they would have had to like drill down these massive holes. I remember reading something about that.
Yeah.
And also, I need... Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the thing started spazzing out. So, and they gave me another idea. As a new mechanic for the craters, expanding space.
Yeah.
Because if you remember in Winterhome, I think at the beginning of Winterhome, when you couldn't really clear enough, there wasn't a lot of room to build things like an industrial hothouse. I think there were like one or two spots that you could build them if you didn't clear anything yet.
Yeah.
So that gave me the idea. I think there should probably be a way to utilize a wall drill to expand the crater.
That would be a cool mechanic. That's a good one. Because I'm saying if we had the wall drill and we could use the wall drill to actually expand out the craters and build the new areas or make the city a bit larger, then that could allow you to probably create or open up the area to more space and get more resources and have more people in the city. That would work with the baby making thing.
A more unstable expansion of that idea. I think I mentioned this probably like a couple of weeks ago. Holes in the wall leading to other cities, like a trade route, a transit route.
Yeah, that would be a good look.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if they would cave in or not.
Well, maybe what could actually happen is that they could first create something like a cave system, and then after a while they're like, okay, we want to excavate this cave area and open it out into an actual crevice to an extent. So instead of it being a cave area, it becomes almost like an actual open surface area, almost like an open surface mine. Sorry? What do you think?
An open surface mine.
I think it would actually be pretty limited for a time between the cities, because if you look at the regular travel time from New London to Winterhome with the New London Scouts, it takes 2.5 days to reach it if you haven't scattered it yet. Yeah. So already we know it takes a long time just to get to another city in the Frostlands.
Yeah.
So if it takes a long time...
Yeah, that would.
Well, if we...
But...
Yeah? Go on.
I think, you know the Flying Hunters?
Yeah. That's one thing I wanted.
I was kind of wondering how they could be utilized, because how far do they even fly out? I still never got how this hunting thing worked. I swear to God, all the animals should have been dead.
Well, actually, the Arctic animals and plants could easily adapt to the cold because they've already lived in these hellishly freezing conditions before.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel like they would have dipped maybe, like, in our, maybe recently up to, like, maybe -80, -70, -80. But then the temperature starts dipping. Oh wait, by the time, yeah, I think around the time it's getting too cold, you couldn't even send people out to get food, right? Okay, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, because the storm rolls in, and then it's just too bad for anyone to go outside and survive. And when you couldn't even hunt or grow food in the hothouses, it was too cold to even go out.
Yeah.
That was the boundary that was actually pushed. I remember now.
So if that's the case, then Neef is actually correct. The animals within the Frostland would be able to adjust from Arctic conditions to Frostland conditions. But
we might actually see some of the animals die out, like a portion of the population, as they adjust to the new reality. Not all of them would survive, but
yeah,
I think enough of them would survive due to already living in such negative conditions.
They certainly wouldn't go extinct, I suppose.
Yeah, they wouldn't go extinct, but the population would probably dwindle like humanity's.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
And then there would be a big expansion, a boom, after they've realized or learned how to actually survive these hellish conditions. Because if you look at the Arctic frog, that thing can be frozen solid and still be alive once unthawed. So I mean, maybe the animals have this hibernation system that has never been seen before, where they could be frozen partially or fully, yet still they survive. Sounds crazy, but it's possible.
I think it would be a cool event to maybe discover an adapted organism, but at the same time, it would have to be long enough. It wouldn't happen over a span of a year, I guess.
No, it has to be extremely longer for something like that to happen. So
yeah. I'm talking about evolution now. That's a different story.
Yeah, that's a different story. But then it all depends on how 11-Bit Studios kind of pulls this off. So that's what I'm really...
No, the Ice Age is something that, like, we might not know everything about. There could be some wild theories thrown out there.
Yeah, you should have seen the lore page earlier this month. I mean, these dudes had some incredible ideas. Like, they're like meteors in Pangea and some other stuff about some craters being found, and somebody else was saying that volcanoes were not the cause of it. But I was saying to them that volcanoes can't be the actual cause for the deep freeze. I was saying that it's a combination of things, because if you notice what's happening today, there are so many hurricanes and there's so much change in the weather. It used to be cold at one point in time. Let's see, Alaska used to have ice way into the summer. Now there's no ice at all. And it used to be much cooler than it is now. So I'm thinking that what happened was that there was a massive shift in the weather, and that weather shift kind of created the fall in temperatures. So whenever the volcanoes erupted or whatever happened, it caused a chain effect, like a domino effect, and then everything else just went to shit. That's my theory of what happened. Because they talked about...
I see.
Yeah, it's an earthquake.
Yes. To build on that, volcanoes could be a portion of the cause, as the volcanic ash would block out sunlight and therefore would block out some of the warmth, which would lower the temperature on the planet. If the sun also dimmed at around the same time, that would further drastically reduce the temperature on the planet, which could completely alter the climate itself.
Yeah.
Do you think the toxicity of the volcano, it must have been a massive eruption?
Yellowstone could have gone off for all we know.
Well, the crazy thing about it is that there's some quotes on the game itself saying that 2 volcanoes went up at the same time. So if 2 volcanoes actually went up, that means that, you know, it was caused by a double eruption, which is kind of crazy. So 2 volcanoes went up, and then those 2 volcanoes kind of created the or triggered the eventual decline in temperature. So that is another theory that we could look at, or something that could actually be
Krakatoa and Reykjavik.
If we assume these were really strong volcanoes like Mount St. Helens, for example, and not really weak volcanoes like most of the ones in Hawaii, it's very possible two of them going off at the same time could have a very drastic effect on the climate.
Yeah.
But
I never knew volcanoes could actually have... Which volcano did you say it was?
I said volcanoes like maybe Mount St. Helens, for example. These strong volcanoes that don't erupt as often, but when they do, they cause more damage. They spew out more ash, which blocks the clouds and sunlight.
If you could compare that to, like, say, a Hawaiian one, to what proportion? How much more worse would that be?
You know, the latest eruptions in Hawaii, there's an awful lot of lava, but it's not that much ash.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking something a lot bigger, something that can cover a significant portion of the Earth's atmosphere with ash, enough to block out a significant amount of sunlight to alter the temperature in the area. And if you have two of those go off in different locations of the Earth, that could have a significant effect combined with other weather anomalies, like we said before, the sun dimming.
I think it started off because the colonies went down first, and obviously the places that would be affected the most would be the ones affected first, right?
Yeah.
It's I believe it's said in some of the hints that the areas less developed, such as Africa, the southern areas, basically of the planet, fell into chaos and anarchy first because due to less development, they were less prepared for apparently the massive destruction that came.
The temperature dropped.
Yeah. That is actually true. Because of the fall in temperatures, people got scared, freaked out, went to ask their gods for help, and all of that just in an attempt to find a way to deal with the situation that was occurring. But they were, to an extent, didn't get any answer back. So
the point, so these two volcanoes must have been on like the opposite sides of the Earth at one time.
I think so too.
Well, I guess it's hard to speculate on this.
Yeah, it can be difficult to speculate, but we of course are already assuming that it's not just volcanoes that cause this. We also have the sun dimming, but then we have to think of other effects that could potentially drastically destabilize the weather system. And what we did see is that it appears
and the Industrial Revolution wasn't too bad.
Yeah. If we take, I forget the scientist's name at the moment, but the one who said that these were Gale 10 winds that come down in a storm, the winds that are released from the upper atmosphere blowing down onto the Earth, is likely these very strong winds that are not only very dangerous, are probably cooling the planet itself. Because before they were just trapped in the upper atmosphere, they weren't affecting the ground, but now they're released. Those two could be cooling the Earth.
I can't disagree with that.
Yes, yeah, because there's like a hole in the ozone or something.
That could be it, because the volcanoes actually do cause stuff like that. They can actually affect the atmosphere, and they can also cause the planet to cool down.
Yes, okay. There's actually something very interesting here about volcanoes. Large volcanic eruptions can do serious damage to the Earth's ozone layer in coming decades. So it's possible that the volcanoes that erupted caused damage to the ozone layer, which released the gale winds that started cooling.
Which flew right through these holes. Fun fact, there's a massive hole in the ozone layer in Australia.
Shit, I didn't know that.
I thought it was Antarctica.
It's right in the center of the desert. It's like one of the most cancerous areas, apparently.
Shit. Oof. Really?
Yeah, that's Australia for you. Yeah.
Damn. That's crazy.
The outback, as they call it.
The outback. No wonder people see so much shit. They got radioactiveness all over them.
The kind of animals down in Australia, man.
Kangaroos. I mean, those shits can punch you.
That's three combinations we have that could actually have caused the frostlands that we now know today. The volcanic eruptions, the hole in the ozone layer, and a dimming sun all at the same time. Well, roughly at the same time.
Did you find anything about volcanoes actually causing the dimming of the sun?
Well, I don't think the volcanoes could actually cause the sun to dim, but it is possible.
Remember what you said
the sun
about
to just dim in output.
Yeah, but remember what you said about the ash covering the earth?
Oh yes, because the volcanoes can do serious damage to the ozone layer and open up the hole. But the large ash clouds from previous volcanic eruptions in the past have been reported to actually cool the earth because they're blocking sunlight. So we know that volcanic ash can, in fact, cause the earth temperatures to drop a bit by blocking sunlight.
So then that also means that because I'm guessing that during the 18th century and the 17th century, they didn't know anything about volcanoes all that much, apart from them being forces of nature.
Well, yeah, I don't remember how much they knew in the 1700s. The 1800s, a lot more science was taking off at that point. I'd actually have to look into information to see what they knew up until the Great Frosting and everything, since the game, when we take control, is usually in the 1880s.
Yeah, around the time, like the 1880s, is around the time where I think almost all facets of science will be accessible.
Yeah. Because, I mean, Charles Babbage's idea of the difference engine and the analytical engine was supposed to fail, but it didn't. That's interesting. I guess when they altered...
Not to mention computers.
Yeah, the computer. The fact that he had help from this girl named Ada Lovelace, and she was like, okay, maybe you need to change this. And then some other guy made the steam core. I think his name is Etienne Lenoir. And then somebody else made the locomotive engine. And then another French scientist and physicist contributed to the difference engine. With all those people working at that time, then there was bound to be some computer coming out of it and some crazy freakishly large machines when shit goes to the fan.
Yeah. Going back to the volcanoes, as I just found a little more information, there was record of Tambora in such as about like 1817, 1813 erupting, and that caused only a mere 3 degrees in drop of global temperatures, but that actually caused drastic effects, especially in the northern hemisphere. We're like talking summertime frost in the United States and widespread crop failures as well. I think near Great Britain, it says here, that caused outbreaks of disease and famine. So while it only drops the global temperature by 3 degrees, it caused notable chaos in the northern hemisphere. So 2 of those going off would definitely cause civilization some pain, especially in the late 1800s.
I agree with that. And then added up to the fact that it could actually decrease the temperature. If the 2 of them went off, well, from what the game keeps saying, the 2 of them went off at the same time. So that means that the first one might have, or the 2 of them together might have sustained the cooling effect. So when the temperature fell, the plants to an extent probably died off. A lot of them that are used to tropical weather. And when they died, there was less carbon dioxide being produced, because at night trees release carbon dioxide and they consume oxygen, if you get what I'm saying. So if it becomes too cold for them to actually operate properly, then that would lead to nature failing. And if nature fails, then there's not enough regular activities within the ecosystem to keep the carbon dioxide and oxygen levels at the same level. You see where I'm going? So there's more oxygen versus carbon dioxide.
Actually interesting here, there was a volcano in 1884 that erupted,
Oh, it was Krakatoa.
Krakatoa. Yes, it erupted in 1884, causing a temperature drop as much as 2 degrees in the northern hemisphere, which caused records of unusual weather, and the global spread of its ash gave atmospheric scientists the first clues of high-altitude, high-speed winds, which today we know as jet streams. The globe.
So then that means that it and another volcano actually did contribute to the fall in temperatures.
Yes, if we just I mean, we could easily imagine, hypothetically, in Frostpunk that this volcano and another volcano both go off, and simply that this volcano and the other volcano do more damage than it did in our timeline, and therefore causing much more drastic effects. Because we're seeing only a 2 or 3 degree temperature drop, and it's causing a very significant shift in the weather that's causing crop failures and unusual weather. At just 2 or 3 degree drop.
2 or 3 degrees.
So if you
go on.
Yeah, so if you have 2 of them go off at the same time, that, say, just in the northern hemisphere alone, cause a total of 5 to 6 degree weather drop. 5 to 6 degrees in temperature drops. We could probably assume that the damage is double or maybe even triple of the effects that we just see out of 2 or 3.
Yeah. And I'm thinking also that if that is actually what occurs, then it could also mean that when these temperatures fell and the volcanoes caused the weather to change, the directions of regular hurricanes might have also changed too. If you see where I'm going.
That is possible.
So then
we do see the holes in the ozone layer that did cause the winds in the upper atmosphere to blow down, so that could potentially shift weather patterns too across the globe, causing more chaos.
Yeah, because if you notice, the storm itself, it passes over the frostland, and when it passes over, it freezes everything it touches, because I'm sure that anything that is exposed to minus 150 degrees is an instant freeze. Am I correct or am I incorrect?
I assume you're talking Celsius here. In Fahrenheit, at a minus 150 degrees, I believe that's called absolute zero, where even fuel can freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look that up.
You know how you said that storm was a bit like a hurricane, and it pretty much was. I remember hurricanes need the momentum of water to actually form.
No, I'm wrong. So I'm sorry. Absolute zero is way lower. We're talking like minus 273 degrees Celsius. The storm doesn't reach even those levels.
Okay.
Okay.
So what?
But it still reaches a point of very catastrophic damage. I mean, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Jesus.
So that means at that low temperature, you might not be insta frozen, but you could be frozen within a few minutes or so.
Let's just say you don't want to be outside if it's that cold.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Canada, so.
you know what it's like. I figure.
I've tried negative 40, and it's, well, I don't really remember it. I was a kid, but well, at least I lived.
Yeah.
Well, now we know we can survive in minus 40.
Yeah.
With a full house of heating.
I was also thinking that if the guy was capable of walking out into the storm and getting his little girl and making it back, there must be some form of human evolution that might have taken place when the Frostland became a thing. You know about Sherpas, right?
Yeah.
So maybe.
Well, actually, that theory does hold a little merit, because I know someone who had Australian blood in them, and he sweats more than people born in America do, because in Australia it's a lot hotter.
Yeah.
And generally, humans over time adapted to the much hotter climate in Australia, so they naturally sweat more to deal with it.
So I'm thinking.
However, that takes years.
Yeah, that's gonna take years.
I think that sort of adaptation takes a lot more generations.
Yeah. So I don't think they would have adapted in time for this severe of cold. But you do give him equipment, which I assume we arm him for the journey with equipment that we give the scouts to survive. And therefore he can just barely survive, as they say it's a miracle.
It's a miracle. But then the crazy thing is that any unskilled person can be a scout. Remember that?
Start training anyone.
5 workers.
5 workers with 40 wood, and they can do anything. I think
you too can become a scout.
Just sign up here, and if you get electrocuted, it's okay. You know, there are.
If we tell you to enter the Tesla city, you enter that goddamn city.
That actually brings me back to the on day 25 in Winterhome, when you can send the 5 scouts to investigate the human path that you see in the smoke in the distance, which we of course know is Winterhome, or not Winterhome. It's New London, but of course the people in Winterhome have no idea about this.
The crazy thing is, go on.
No, I still think that perhaps the lone survivor that walks in and says that everyone's doomed just before he dies might be the best survivor of the scouts sent, because they were already sent, but since they don't know the path to New London as well, they could have taken longer than our scouts take to get to Winterhome.
Well, that's a possibility. But here is something that might be even a bit more accurate. The scouts were actually working and found as you said, the tracks leading to New London. But when they realized that the generator exploded, most of them went back to try and get their wives and children. So where I'm going? And then... Yeah,
that is possible. I always question it because I feel like they knew they wouldn't make it in time for the evacuation. But I suppose if we assume their families were never on the Dreadnought to begin with, then that could very well happen.
I think that's more than likely what happened. And I guess the lone survivor, he just had nothing left. And so my dude was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go walking in the Frostland until I come across a mirage or some shit that looks like a city. And so he makes it to New London because he sees the smoke and the beacon. And he's like, what the fuck is this within the Frostland? Ain't nobody supposed to be out here. But if we looked a bit further, we would have probably seen the bodies, because there were a lot of bodies on the way to New London. You know how freaking scary that might be? To be, leaving the city and then coming
mass graves.
Yeah, coming across your your friend from like 40 days ago, still frozen in the same position.
Yeah, that also reminds me, the best end result we get in Winterhome, we know for a fact that is not exactly what happened, because we know from the New London scenario not all the children were evacuated. But we as the players usually evacuate all the children because that raises hope, that raises work effectiveness. But we know in reality not all the children were evacuated from Winterhome.
No, most of them were still working within the coal thumpers and the other facilities, because like it or not, the generator and the area itself needs to be maintained if the buildings are going to work in order for people to leave. But I think that when the generator exploded, they all left in a hurry. So like once it exploded, they all ran away. But when they ran away, the Dreadnought had already left with the captain and everything else. So there was...
Yeah, we don't know exactly how many people were evacuated, but we can... Given what we find, we could probably assume about maybe 200 to 300 people of the 500 possible were evacuated. Because we don't find too many bodies, but we find a significant enough of people left behind and some bodies to get around that point. Well,
so you could say hundreds.
From the riot.
Yeah, I could say probably a couple hundred or more. But then it's kind of what I find strange though is the fact that New London itself was able to turn Winterhome into a lumber extraction facility. That's kind of messed up.
I think that's just because the city had... If you look at the city numbers, you couldn't get up to over 600 people in Winterhome, so arguably it had an awful lot of wood, and, well, they don't need that broken down generator anymore.
Yeah, so we're just going to take the steam core, the 2 steam cores, and, most of the wood that's left. But how...
yes. Yeah. Just fun fact, you can last until day 30 on Winterhome, from what I found so far.
Really?
Yes, because once the day, assuming you've got the 5,000 coal for the Dreadnought, I believe, once you kind of hit the point where the quest expires, it goes into the phase of a kind of a final countdown, because what happens then is the generator goes into its irreversible malfunction that you can't stop, and it'll explode in 2 days. But if you have that free steam core on hand, because you can get 11 or 12 of you steam cores, if you use that steam core, you can buy yourself another day. Which can at the beginning of day 30, and after that,
I could have
explodes.
Well, then again, 4,000 steel. I think I was. No, maybe that wouldn't be possible. Because I had those 2 days left, and I wasn't really sure, so I just said fuck it and just left.
So you're
when the generator explodes, assuming the Dreadnought already has enough coal, the game auto launches it when the generator explodes, so you technically can still win that way.
Holy shit!
That's true. It was a really late night.
That's crazy. I didn't know you could actually do that. I never chanced it.
Actually, that reminds me, I do want to take an experiment in just on easy mode, just research the generator bypass that slows the stress buildup. I want to see if that buys you more time or not.
Yeah, it does. It does. I did it. The overdrive bucklings and the other one, it actually does buy you some more time, but the time that it
does.
Go on.
Yeah, it does, but the problem is that regardless of what you do, that thing is gonna blow up. So I try to get the engineers out of there as soon as possible. I think I managed to get at.
For me, I kind of keep the engineers working on the repair station as long as possible, because if you have that thing fully staffed with good research on the repairs, like the first breakdown can be fixed in about 4 hours, which is really good.
What about the second one?
But yes, I think Winter Home is kind of like that evolution scenario, because they called it the builder scenario, and I think it's more than just us, rebuilding the Dreadnought and leaving, and after rebuilding the city, only to find it's going to explode. I think in a way we can also view the quote unquote builder scenario as the reveal of a new take on mechanics in Frostpunk.
Yeah, I think maybe they're using it as a testing ground.
And we're the guinea pigs.
Yeah. Free DLC.
Easily, we're good.
Hey, if it's going to be free DLC, I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, not at all. I got to be honest. I freaking love this game.
And we do know they have said that they do plan to add additional content in 2019 as well. Of course, none of that is listed, and that's fair. They do have 2018 to work on still. But we do know the next year already holds additional expansions of no doubt more scenarios and more lore.
Yeah. The thing is, I have a feeling that when they drop one scenario, they usually drop another 2 with it. And so since as they're going with the builder scenario, there might be a little story or a little twist to it where we see another city appearing apart from Manchester, and this time we could probably end up taking it over.
Just invade it.
My dude's like straight up take it over. Yeah, that would be interesting to see how.
What's better than freaking sending the maid?
Yeah, just taking them over. That way we have 2 cities that we can control. But you know what?
And then tell them how to actually fix their own city.
Yeah. The crazy thing about this is that this game, as you guys said earlier, it lives up to the hype that everybody has been talking about. Oh, this game, you gotta get this game. And when you get it, you're like, well, is this really what I wanted? And you're like, yes, this is everything that I hoped and thought it would actually be. So,
just something else to back up the theory that at least several hundred people managed to escape Winter Home is that in New London, this is probably just a game oversight, but I'm just going to assume it's lore as well, is that we never find the iron deposit that Winter Home uses to get the steel to build the Dreadnought.
Nope.
Well, let's fix it up.
I think it's probably covered over with ice.
Yeah, what my belief is that it was probably mined out, because it doesn't get too cold to where it could have been frozen over, because we were at around the temperatures of Winterhome as well when we find them.
Yeah.
Well, what's left of them.
This game has a Mount Everest kind of feel.
It's got well, it just emphasizes futility and survival.
But it's kind of if you actually look at it, it's very scary. I mean, you come across a city and then you see people frozen in place. That is fucked up. That is worse than the Diablo Pass or whatever that is. I mean, you're experiencing the Diablo Pass every single day. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah, like that picture of that kid seeing these that stuff outside the window.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of slowly freezes over, and then you still see the hobo and like the dog trying to like get heated off this drum.
Something like that. That's how creepy it probably was. So
frozen in place, and that is fucking scary.
I know, right?
In a way, desert areas such as the Middle East and the Sahara would actually fare no better because deserts are very warm during the day because they're kind of near the center of the equator to begin with, but at night they're very cold because they can't trap heat. So they already can't trap heat, now it's way colder, they're going to essentially be frozen deserts.
I was thinking that...
I was sort of wondering that way.
Go on.
About how the desert would just... Because it is cold at night.
Yeah.
Well, point being, yeah, they would just freeze over.
Yeah, we can safely assume that even the deserts in the center are very much frozen over.
So if the place near Iceland, which starts off at what, -30, we can assume the world is -20. So the world is -20. Is that what we could say? Because I feel like -20. Wouldn't kill off the world.
No, it wouldn't. And the equator would still
obviously. But it would be crazy, obviously, because most of these places are not accustomed to -20.
Yes.
But some places are also still in the mountains. I was also kind of wondering, places in the mountains, how affected would they get? Tibet, for example.
I think they would have experienced the full brunt of the storm itself. That's what I'm thinking.
Would they just get even colder? Would they just... Because the atmosphere reaches a certain point. Or the winds might be below a certain height.
To be honest, the temperatures we see that New London has to survive in the storm, those are the temperatures where the city is located. If the city were to be built outside the crater, it would have probably faced a much more severe temperature drop, probably 40, 50, even 60 degrees, depending on how strong and how cold the winds are. Because that would have made it even colder to the population.
Yeah, just by you raising that point makes me think that what Winterhome is experiencing, not Winterhome, what New London is experiencing in terms of temperature of -150 degrees, the storm might actually be much, much, much lower than that.
It must.
Yeah, it could be simply because they're not getting hit by the brunt of the winds. It's definitely blowing over the top and making it very cold. That's why it gets so cold then. But they're not being hit by the brunt because of how deep in the crater they are. Most of it's just going right over.
Here's a crazy theory. I think that there is a Sasquatch within the Frostland.
And the cold is helping them restart.
No, I'm serious. Like, do you remember the little cave near Winterhome?
Oh yes, I remember that cave where the children are hidden by the teachers.
Yeah, and the bears are also in this other cave.
The bears cave near New London.
Yeah, but there was a third cave where you find some hunting supplies and stuff in there. You remember it?
Like food?
Yeah. Like after you rescue some people, there's another cave where you see a figure in the distance walking away, and then when you go into the cave, you see like some hunting equipment and stuff, but then there's nobody inside the cave.
I don't remember that cave. I'd have to look for it again.
It's right below Winter Home. Like it's the farthest point on the map.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you mean all the way down?
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, you're talking about Winterhome.
No, I'm talking about New London.
Oh, New London. Okay, but so yeah, all the way down then.
Yeah. And I was saying, if there was a figure in the snow, that could also mean that to an extent that somebody or something was actually occupying the area. I'm thinking it might have been a person. But the fact that it never returned means that it could be something else. But
of course, we never know.
Because I mean,
it could definitely be a Sam Squinch.
Sam Squinch. Sam Squinch.
Oh, fun fact: at minus 40 degrees, both Celsius and Fahrenheit are the exact same temperature.
Shit. Really?
Oh wow.
They're both minus 40.
I didn't know that.
So if Celsius is minus 40, Fahrenheit is minus 40. I thought that was an neato fun fact.
Yeah,
does that mean the degree into as to how like Fahrenheit? So negative 150. It's kind of weird because it gets like proportionally larger as it goes higher.
Yeah, at negative 150 degrees Celsius, you have negative 238 Fahrenheit.
Interesting.
Fahrenheit is so weird.
Yeah, it is.
Welcome to America.
Oh my god. But the thing is though, if this creature, or if it's actually a person, if it's a person, I think they would try and contact the scouts. But the fact that they didn't kind of makes me think it could be something else. What do you guys think about that?
Tesla's dead.
Yeah, we know that.
It could be I remember in Winterhome there are some thugs you rescue, and you could banish them or not. That's up to you. Could be one of them surviving.
Yeah, but wouldn't they try and make contact with the scouts from New London?
Well, they might think those are scouts from Winterhome who still remember the uprising. They can't be certain.
Yeah, because they actually never come back.
Yeah. Yeah, the city might be dead, but, there's probably other people from Winterhome out there that might want to enact personal revenge on them now that the captain's gone.
That could be possible, or it could be a small civilization of people. But
that's clearly the Amazonians.
Oh, crazy, man. But it's an interesting theory, or something I was looking into, and I was wondering if it was actually possible. But then to an extent, the fact that the area is kind of abandoned, and it's almost like it's a frozen wasteland where you don't know what you might come across, makes you think that anything is actually possible. So
it's got to be more than two cities. So there's New Manchester, there's New London, there's Winterhome. Now we just need to find more places.
There's actually something very curious I have to ask about the storm in the New London scenario. Which direction does it come from again?
North.
I think it was east, northeast. Oh, direct north.
Well, that's what we, the players, see. But I'm trying to remember. I feel like a couple of the scientists I was evacuating, it seemed like if I sent them to the north. Yeah, no, I think it was from the north. You're right.
Yeah, it comes from the north and then it heads south.
Yeah. From the default view, yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember if in game, like it is coming from the north towards our city, kind of in-game thing. Because if it had been coming from the south, that would imply a very drastic change in Earth's weather system.
Yeah.
More than just, the dangerous storm.
It was a very drastic change
But
to Earth's
yeah.
weather system.
Yeah.
So coming from that direction, the storm is mixed in with electricity and something else because it is electrical. That's why the beacon has to come down when the storm is coming in. That's one of the many reasons.
Could have been it could have been the mix of a frost and thunderstorm
and something else. My dude was saying, some other people were saying that there might be some other things connected to it. Like, instead of it actually being electrical, it could actually just be a regular hurricane, but on a sci-fi level of effects. But I don't know how true that is.
It would be possible for the hurricanes to get much worse and form into something monstrous like that. Possible.
So you think that it's plausible that something like that could actually happen?
Potentially. We've seen worse hurricanes in the past before, so it's arguable that they could get even worse, especially when you've got winds in the upper atmosphere being released down into the lower atmosphere now when they shouldn't be. They could make them even worse, essentially, making them much, much stronger wind force, which can make them much colder.
So then that therefore
and more dangerous.
And more dangerous. Yo, that's crazy though. That's crazy. But I'm saying, this is actually the test live stream. You guys like it?
Hurricanes need momentum.
Yeah, they do.
But winter storms already obviously have that coming down from the ozone layer, I guess, and as far as my science knowledge gets, that's valid.
Yeah, so if they actually have the momentum, they can last for a certain period of time. But I think whatever is in the storm, it's extremely dense because the storm takes about 4 to 5 or 7 days to come across the entire Frostland.
About a week over the city.
Yeah.
Once it hits, it takes about a week of survival before
so
it's
7
over.
Days.
A week of rations, yeah. And then the eye of the storm is like the coldest or something. If it passes over, then obviously you got past the eye of the storm.
Actually, it was very interesting. The final day, just before it ends, is actually when it gets the coldest.
So that means the eye
which is really strange.
Over. Yeah, that is really.
The eye of the storm is meant to be the coldest part of the storm.
Yeah. So
and there would be no wind.
Yeah.
But that's another point.
That's another.
Well, this is assuming the eye of the storm passes over New London, but we could also easily assume that it simply doesn't.
Yeah, it just doesn't. And then it just keeps getting colder and colder. But then at the very coldest is the edge of the storm on the back.
It could be just the rapid drop in temperature temporarily is just the winds on the back coming down and hitting New London before dissipating.
Yeah.
That is actually possible. That is possible. Storm eye could be somewhere north of New London or something like that, and we're actually just getting the walls of the storm to an extent. That's crazy though. I mean, all of these crazy things that 11-Bit Studios throws in, and then have you noticed that some of the points of interest are actually random?
I haven't noticed that actually.
Sometimes you'll find the weather station in one area, other times it won't. Then there are other times you might find the observatory in one area, then you might actually find the cave in that area instead. See where I'm going?
So the positions are slightly altered. It's not bad.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea that 11-Bit Studios actually put that in. But what do you guys think about the stream?
It's enjoyable.
You like it?
The stream. Oh, you mean the one that they started up?
Yeah, the one that I'm doing
Who's
right
stream?
now.
Oh, you're doing a stream right now?
Yeah.
Been going.
Oh, shit.
You didn't know?
I saw a bunch of videos posted, but I didn't really take a look.
This shit is live, man. This thing was live. It still is.
What level are you playing?
Huh?
What scenario?
I'm not playing. It's Frostpunk Radio, man.
Wait, this is a stream?
Live.
Yes.
Well, he said this was a test stream. The real one is Sunday, but this is a good test.
This is a test stream, man. I wanted to see how good it would be. You didn't know?
I didn't even know, man.
Yeah, man. This was a stream. That's why I got this area created. So, like, when it actually launches, anybody can actually pop in. So, I just invited some people in. It's like, yo, let's have a conversation. Mm-hmm.
He ran for it.
He ran?
I think he ran for it.
He ran?
He's gone.
He's gone? No, he's back.
He's back.
What happened?
My bad. I clicked the button on the computer, but I'm actually connected to my phone, and then Discord just tripped out. Okay, so gaming.youtube. Let's see.
He's gonna look it
up. Actually, I just remembered back to the convoys. The idea of convoys trading between cities. The automatons could do it.
Yeah, they could. I mean, the fact that you can send a relief team, then, you can actually do it.
Yeah.
So if the automatons...
In the ARC scenario, when you send the relief teams to New Manchester, I assume the automaton either just starts working there for them, or they break it down for steel.
I think it actually works for them because I think you probably send an engineer with it. So I'm thinking that it actually...
No, at least you don't have... It doesn't make you spend an engineer. So, under that pretense, it just sends the automaton.
The reason why I say that is because everyone within the city is an engineer.
Actually, no, wait, that makes sense. The automaton, once it arrives in New Manchester, probably helps, reconstruct all the buildings from tents to bunkhouses or houses and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So,
because I have seen the automatons help in construction, so we know for a fact that they can construct.
Oh yeah, they can.
And the fact
so
that
very reasonable to assume that the automatons sent to New Manchester helped build it up, which explains why they're able to get it all done quickly despite everyone being sick and dying.
Ah, there you go. And they also
realizing what kind of feat that could have been.
Yeah, that must have been some overdrive work.
24-hour working, no rations.
I mean, the city really needed some repairs. So I'm guessing that's what they actually did to actually get it up and running. But all I can say though, that must have been some serious back-breaking bench work for the captain. He must have spoken to that engineer and got everybody building instantly, because that storm came in right after. So it's a miracle that they actually survived.
Well, if you got them all the resources they needed.
Yeah. If they did, I mean, even if you give them half, they still make it.
Oh yeah, they're not mining anything because we're giving them all the resources, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of their population is sick, so most of them can't do much work. They're struggling just to maintain their food supply, so you need to supply them with everything they need. And yeah, even if you don't give them everything, not all of them die, but a significant portion dies, and it just kind of feels bad.
Yeah. It makes you feel bad if you actually have a heart for them.
Actually, it was very interesting. In one game of New London, I was just playing on easy mode just to find out things again for the heck of it. And I had like 12 automatons working on the no, more like 8 or 10 automatons working on the 2 steam gold thumpers and the gathering posts.
Mm-hmm.
The coal amount, especially on easy difficulty, just gets insane. The input was like at 9,000 a day.
That's true. The automatons gather much more resources, and when you upgrade
especially when you have their effectiveness upgraded to the point where it's like 95%, they're essentially just workers, but way better.
Yeah. Man, I'm gonna do these live streams every single week.
Mm-hmm.
These are much better
Exhaust
than
the content in 2 days.
Huh?
The amount of brainstorming that gets done in this.
I know, right? Allows people to share a whole lot of ideas. I had to actually go through a lot of hoops to get this one channel created. The voice chat for this. You see the name's different?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna end the stream for now, and we pick this up back on Sunday. See you guys later.
Sunday. Yeah, that sounds good.
Alright.
Do we have a specific time?
Well, what time is good for you guys?
You know what? I'm probably going to be available anytime.
Well, I'll start at probably 10 in the morning or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll be so far back I can take it. Or I got a better idea. I might actually change it from Sunday and let it be on Saturday. Or I can do the both days. That's also possible. So I'll give you guys an update tomorrow. Alright?
Yeah, should we confirm this later?
Yeah.